Okay, admit again. So we have started the scientific summit 2 years ago. The first and second took place in Athens at a very beautiful place, Stavros Niarchos, which is emblematic in Athens. And we thought we will make this meeting an annual meeting. Now, this coronavirus really is, you know, a drawback to everything we do. And although we thought of holding a physical meeting for this pre-summit, we had to just do it really a virtual one. So what are we going to do today? We are going to present ourselves as the organizers of the previous summits, talk about our experience, and talk why we decided to hold this meeting and why we thought that it would be a good idea to form a scientific association on harm reduction. And let me check. Okay, before I do that, I will just let you all about the housekeeping items. We are going to discuss on Zoom that you have already participated. So I would ask you all to mute your microphones if you are not speaking, and raise your hands when you want to comment or ask a question. I would also urge you to interact with your colleagues via the chat.
Hello.
And the chat is on the bar where you have your microphone, your video camera, and you can also turn on the participants list and you can see who is in this meeting. And if you don't want to have your camera on while you are listening to your colleagues talking, you can switch it off. Now, the other thing is that we have another tool, which is panelsensor.com/pre-summit, where you can see the agenda of this meeting. You can see the speakers who are going to Now, whenever I see, I hear someone, I will mute him or her myself. So through the panel sensor, you can see the agenda. You can see the speakers and the CVs of the speakers, and raise the hand. And you can have the polling that will take place afterwards, and also a survey. So I would ask you, someone is asking to have the floor. Do you want me to stop sharing? If there is something that you need to tell me, because we have now 48 people. Let's see, waiting room, admit. Okay, so next. Why do we want to do that? We know that smoking cessation and prevention remains the most impactful and cost-effective interventions in medicine. However, we have more than 1 billion people globally that smoke, and more than 7 million that die every year. A new approach has emerged. New technologies gave us novel products that probably provoke less harm, and there is an emerging strategy that is called tobacco harm reduction, and we are going to talk about it today. We believe as a team that there's growing evidence that novel approaches towards tobacco control may complement the existing ones, which is tobacco cessation and prevention. We also believe that harm reduction is another strategy, and this is why we hold this meeting today. We believe that tobacco harm reduction can supplement tobacco control. What should be done? Definitely, we still have to continue what we have done so far. Tobacco smoking cessation and prevention. However, we are here to discuss whether harm reduction could be another pillar to complement those strategies, and whether together with prevention and cessation, tobacco harm reduction can add to a better outcome with respect to lessening or minimizing the effects from smoking. There is a debate which is very fierce, and sometimes scientific evidence is dismissed to defend traditional approaches to tobacco control. As a team of scientists, we believe that tobacco harm reduction needs room for more study. We think we need to find Can I ask you all whether slides are
there are no slides visible. We only see the first slide with your photo, nothing else.
Yeah, just we only can.
Dear Lina, I sent a message because there is a problem, obviously, with the slides change. So since your third slide, nothing has changed. Everybody is looking, has seen just the first slide, yes.
What about now? Housekeeping. Did you see housekeeping slide?
No. As Professor Varda said, we are stuck on the third slide. There is nothing after that.
Yes, me too.
My screen sharing is paused. Why? Stop sharing. Excuse me, and I will do that again. Now you see this housekeeping slide?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see whether you can see the next one.
No.
No. No. Yes.
It hasn't changed?
Yes. It's appeared. Yes, it changed.
Yeah, it has changed, ma'am.
Okay. Anyway, I'll go a bit faster then. You heard what I said. We need to build a tobacco harm reduction society because we believe tobacco harm reduction can supplement tobacco control. What I said before is that tobacco harm reduction debate is still at an early stage and faces a lot of opposition. We believe that more research and publications are needed to raise awareness, and also more data and more opportunities to properly explain the benefits of this approach to health policy experts, regulators, and the public. And also, we still have to appropriately address the concerns such as the continuous use and dependence on nicotine, as well as potential adoption of use by never smokers and youth. So we need to find a way of establishing a constructive dialogue to discuss concerns and challenges. So that's why we are here today. We believe that a scientific think tank on tobacco harm reduction can make things easier because through a network of scientists that are working together or separately but are sharing their data can make a difference. I will ask Dimitris Kouretas and also Kostas Poulas and Anastasia Barbouni and Ignatios Economidis to just talk to you because they are the initiators of this scientific summit, to talk to you about all the things that we have thought. And first of all, I would like to ask Dimitri to come in and tell us how it all started.
Okay. I would like to give the floor to Kostas because we structured our presentation this way. Kostas will talk a little bit about our common effort, and then I will talk about the publications that we had made in food and chemical toxicology, the special issue, and the next we are doing now in toxicology reports. So, Costa, you have the floor.
So, thank you. I would like to say hello to everybody. It is a late afternoon in Greece, but since we are so many from different parts of the world, I suppose that the time is different. Thank you for joining. We started this trip, this journey, more or less exactly 2 years ago, the May of 2018, when we had the first Tobacco Harm Reduction Summit.
Kostas, you cannot hear
was from that decided to join. So it was Professor Koureta's lab and my lab in University of Patras that we decided to start this the first summit during that year, and then during the second year we joined forces with University of Athens and the Public Health School, and Konstantinos Farsalinos also joined us, and we had the opportunity to organize the second summit, which was much more successful. And during previous months, we were planning the third summit. We were planning to host it in Athens again during the September of this year, but life has changed, and we are in this difficult and strange situation. So more or less, we have decided that it is impossible to have this third tobacco harm reduction meeting live in Athens. So we decided to change our minds and organize it remotely. And the second idea that came from Lina and from her colleagues was to try and make a pre-summit during this month in the middle of pandemic in order to discuss issues that could arise during the organization, and also to try and bring new ideas and to start potentially to collaborate. So more or less, this is the story. I can distinguish between the participants, some friends, some people who participated in the previous meetings. I also recognize some people that we share common forums and we discuss remotely. So it's a good chance to try and discuss live during these 3 hours. I think that I will continue a bit later after the other co-organizers' presentations, and we will have also the time to discuss a bit later. So thank you.
Thank you, Kostas.
I will talk a little bit.
Dimitris.
In very, very short, I would like to say that we started to publish a special issue in Food and Chemical Toxicology Journal of Elsevier, in which I am the associate editor. So we published a special issue on alternative tobacco products 3 years ago. And 2 years ago, when we had the first meeting, we had a nice presentation of all the articles. And it was very interesting because Elsevier has 17 journals in toxicology. And this special issue had the most downloads in all journals in this year and in that year. So that means that it was very successful. So we decided to run a new special issue in Toxicology Reports, which is also a very nice journal of Elsevier, which we accept submissions. It's open for submissions, and it will last until October 2020. And we try, and we have the also acceptance from Elsevier, from the publisher, that will also create a new special issue in food and chemical toxicology next year. So what we are thinking from the organizing committee, if you like and if you agree, to have a presentation every year of the journal that was in the previous year, and to establish something like that, because it's very important to have this kind of opportunity to publish in this journal, because as you know, it's not very easy. Some people are very skeptical, and we had this success, and I think we'll continue the next years. So I want to thank Lina and all of you, and I hope that this meeting will be beneficial for any party. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dimitris. Natasha, would you like to come in?
Yes, I am in. Hello to everybody. For my part, I don't know if I can hear you. Can hear me? Can you hear me? I think yes.
Yes,
Lina,
we can
you
hear.
hear me? Okay. For my part, I would like to welcome you to this meeting, and thank you for your interest in achieving our common goal. I believe that data is a very special issue in harm reduction, tobacco harm reduction, and all we acknowledge that monetization and mainly tobacco harm reduction are an early, and as a pediatrician, I used to say that almost like a newbie steps stage. Also, we can agree that at the heart of tobacco harm reduction surveillance and modeling, epidemiological data, accessible data are of great value for preparedness and response, and maybe understanding the new era of tobacco harm reduction. However, the status quo renders acquiring and using such data difficult in practice. In many cases, a primary way for obtaining epidemiological data is through researches, but I believe that the methods by which the data are presented to the public often differ drastically among institutions. So as a result, there is a strong need for better data sharing practices. Let's say to have a common language, to have, I believe, 3 challenges when attempting to acquire and use those data. The first is interfaces. The second, the data formatting. And the last one, the third, is reporting. These challenges are used to provide suggestions and guidance for improvement, assist this system involved in the future for harm reduction policy. If these suggested data and interface recommendations were adhered to, epidemiological and public health analysis and informatics work will be streamlined, which can be turned against better public health decision-making capabilities. So I believe, and we can discuss it, data have a variety of uses. From a public health perspective, they can be used to gain an understanding of population-level harm reduction questions. This understanding can in turn be used to help or to aid in decision making and maybe allocating the resources. And from a researcher's perspective, high quality reference data are needed to enable prediction and forecasting. Also, I think this data can be used to inform and educate healthcare professionals, as Lina mentioned before, because health professionals, despite knowing the harmful health effects of smoking for decades, many of them do not know the basics of tobacco harm reduction. So they need information and education. With that in mind, I hope we have a creative afternoon and people can continue our dialogue on September in the summit when we have the third summit. Thank you in advance, and I think the next colleague can take the floor.
Thank you, Natasha. Ignatie, would you like to present and would you like to also share your presentation, or do you want me to do it? You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, yes, I can do it if you give me the right to open and do the share screen, because I'm disabled.
Okay,
So,
I will do that. Give me a sec.
all right. I would like to welcome all of you. It was really nice to have you here today and showing your intention to contribute to our future meeting, and also to our consideration to create a nucleus and even a society that deals with smoking cessation and tobacco harm reduction, as these are 2 points that are very hot, and they have not only medical implications, but also social implications, political implications, and there is a need of a team of course, of scientists, doctors, and epidemiologists to talk it over and find the best solution for the society. I will just, I was very happy to join this, I'm still disabled to share my screen.
Give me a second.
Okay. So I was very happy to join this effort from Professor Poulas and Professor Kouretas, and I happily accepted their invitation. And as there is a lot of interest, we decided this year to open up and have this pre-summit and ask more of people that are interested to be co-organizers and participants in this third summit on tobacco harm reduction. And,
can you share your screen?
Sorry? Yes? Is it okay
Try
now?
to share your screen.
Okay. Right. Okay, here we are. I'm an associate professor of cardiology and the head of the Department of Echocardiography and Laboratory of Preventive Cardiology in Athens University Hospital at Home Hospital. We run a quite active smoking cessation clinic. This is some data using the Fagerstrom score in about 1,000 smokers that we have followed during 6 years' time. And you can see that increase quite large number is moderately and high dependent from tobacco. So our effort for smoking cessation is difficult and maybe more difficult than in other countries. What we try to see is if we use medically aided smoking cessation programs like the use of varenicline, if we facilitate abstinence from smoking, but also if we improve vascular function. And we have seen indeed that within 3 months of using varenicline, most of our participants, 180 participants, abstained from smoking the first 3 months or reduced it considerably when they used NRTs, for example, because we compared varenicline with NRTs. However, at 1 year follow-up, only 45% abstained for smoking and had a further improvement in their vascular function, and 55% relapsed, which was a little bit of a disappointment. Despite both of these interventions, both varenicline and NRTs had a good result at 3 months. Now, we tried to have a look at the new products like the e-cigarette and see what the effects on the cardiovascular system and oxidative stress are in acute and chronic trials. Acutely, we have seen that electronic cigarette causes stiffening of the arteries, and this happens also with e-cigarettes that do not contain nicotine. However, when we tested the use of electronic cigarette after 1 month, we have seen a significant improvement of vascular function and reduction of oxidative stress that was related with the reduction of carbon monoxide because people were not smoking the conventional tobacco cigarettes and they have substituted quite a lot of the conventional tobacco cigarettes with electronic cigarette use. And very, very recently, we have accomplished another trial, 4 months follow-up, where we have seen a further improvement in vascular function, as assessed by pulse wave velocity, is a marker of arterial stiffness, and we did not check any effect on platelet aggregation, which was a very good issue compared to a group of patients, a group of subjects, that used conventional tobacco, and where we have seen a further deterioration of platelet aggregation. This was good news because we wanted to see as cardiologists if there is any potential effect on the thrombotic status of users of electronic cigarette. We all probably are familiar that the New England paper, the use of electronic cigarette was more effective than NRTs in 1 year abstinence. Still, the numbers are quite low, 18% for cigarettes and 9.9% with NRTs. That's why there is a need to motivate ourselves and find better ways for smoking cessation. And of course, we have some new papers like the one of Beyond Isokai that tested the heat not burn devices like IQOS or Glow or the various devices, and they found that in the acute phase, of course, there is a deterioration of vascular function, but this is much less than the conventional tobacco. And of course, after 5 days of switching to heat not burn products, there was a significant reduction of carbon monoxide and of other toxicants as detected in the urine. And of course, we have to know that people are fond of electronic cigarettes and are fond of the new heat not burn products, and this is a reality that we have to face it as doctors and as also scientists involved in the smoking cessation policy. So despite that, for example, medication like varenicline are effective, people seem to prefer electronic cigarettes. So this is a reality that we have to face and we have to find out how to deal with. So what I have in mind from my point of view, and I want to share these thoughts with you and to have a discussion about it, is about creating an association that will have some registries to monitor, for example, the efficacy of the medically aided smoking cessation like NRT, varenicline, snus in the long term, and we could have these registries utilizing the smoking cessation clinics that a lot of you are working in, to have a long-term follow-up on e-cigarette users on simple cardiovascular parameters like weight, new onset diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, and check some simple biomarkers like, for example, C-reactive protein or hematocrit or hemoglobin, for example, to check the effects of heat-not-burn products again in the long term, as we don't have data on that. And of course, it will be much easier if we join our forces and join the subjects that we follow up in our clinics. And to do that, maybe we need a society on smoking cessation and tobacco harm reduction, a society that will organize these registries and organize this follow-up and get some data, valid data that can be used by the civil services and guide health policies. And of course, we can also do some common research products. And we have Dr. Kuretas that can provide us with biochemical ideas, what kind of biochemical substances we can look for in our subjects. And Dr. Poulas that has a very active laboratory in pharmacology. And of course, we are welcoming ideas from all of you to formulate research ideas, and of course, not only to formulate, but to put them in practice and have results useful for our subject, useful for our society. Thank you very much, and we can carry on with the rest of the speakers.
Thank you very much, Ignate. Would you like to stop sharing your screen and give me the control?
Okay.
You have to make me a host.
Okay. You have the control of my screen now. And stop sharing. Are we okay now?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know about the rest.
Okay. I would, Konstantin, are you ready? Would you like me to just give you the floor to continue? Konstantinos Farsalinos.
Yes. I'm ready.
Let me do that.
Yes.
I think, Ignatie, you're still the host. You have to make me a host. You go to my name and you make me a host. Otherwise, I cannot.
Could you tell me how do I do that from participants?
So you go to Kostas Farsalinos, and then on more, you just press and you make him a host. And he can then share his
host. Okay. Yes, I did that.
Okay, yes. I just got a message that I'm a host. I'm gonna share my screen now. And I don't know if you can see the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay. So I'm going to present, the concept of harm reduction, why we need harm reduction as a supplementary tool in tobacco control. I fully agree with what Ignacio said about the interaction between smoking cessation and harm reduction. I think they both serve the same goal, and it would be ideal and a novelty basically to combine these two. But so why do we need tobacco harm reduction? I was impressed with the results that Ignatius mentioned, because we see from clinical trials that the long-term efficacy of even the best medications is pretty poor. And here is an example of a study which was basically performed in smokers after they had their first myocardial infarction. It was performed in the US. And while in the short term, varenicline was quite effective, about 50% success rate compared to just 14% for placebo. When you look at 52 weeks, so 1 year follow-up, the success rates in pointing only 20%, less than 20% was successful. Of course, were highly motivated to quit because they had already developed their while they were smokers. Other smoking cessation products like NRTs, the efficacy is much less. It's less than 7%. Some people even say that it's just the psychological support that helps these people and not the NRTs themselves. But because of this problem, and because the most popular, but at the same time the least effective method of quitting is cold turkey, quit by yourself without using any aid and any assistance, we have a lot of smokers who are currently either unable or unwilling to quit with currently approved methods, because, and that's an important point, that many smokers, the vast majority, want to quit, but very few smokers want to go to a healthcare professional for advice to quit. And usually when we ask them why don't they use the healthcare facilities in many countries, like in the UK, it is subsidized by the state. I'm just listening to my sound anyway. So in many countries, it is subsidized by the state, but they don't use it. Smokers feel that smoking is not a disease, it's a bad habit, a bad lifestyle choice, and they want to just change their lifestyle. But anyway, we have a lot of people unwilling or unable to quit. So tobacco harm reduction represents a third option. So the first being quitting by yourself, the second being to use the approved medications. So we are adding a new strategy, which turns quitting to switching, but at the same time, while you maintain nicotine intake, switching is quitting in terms of the use of a combustible product like the tobacco cigarette. So we can consider the tobacco harm reduction as a quitting method. You're not talking about quitting nicotine intake, you're talking about quitting use of a combustible product. But harm reduction as a concept is not only about tobacco, and it's not only about opioid drug use, because the first concept of tobacco, of harm reduction involved opioid use. Harm reduction are things that we use in our daily lives. And one characteristic example is the use of seatbelts, which does not eliminate all the risk for dying or being injured in a car crash. It just reduces the risk. The only way of eliminating the risk is never to use a car. The same applies for helmets. The only real way to eliminate the risk is not to use a motorcycle. But even the same applies for sex. Condoms are a harm reduction approach. But in my opinion, and I have presented that repeatedly, Medicine is also a harm reduction approach in the vast majority of disease conditions. And the reason is that we do not cure any condition besides some infections, not COVID-19, unfortunately. We treat all these diseases. When you develop a myocardial infarction, you're gonna have a part of your heart that is dead for the rest of your life. We hope it will revive at some point through stem cell therapy, which are still experimental therapies. But until now, you know, anything that has died will remain dead for the rest of your life. So we are trying to reduce the harm caused by the disease, to reduce the symptoms and the adverse consequences, to reduce the decline in quality of life caused by the disease, and to reduce the inability caused by the disease, but we do not cure the disease. And we are using medications, but also other medical procedures, invasive or less invasive. But all the medications, and we know that, and all the medical procedures carry risks, and it's the risk-benefit ratio that determines whether a medication or a medical procedure is acceptable and should be used in patients. Now, the case of tobacco harm reduction has a real life example, and that's the example of Sweden. Sweden has a long-standing, and I think Carl Fagerström or even Karl-Erik Lund from Norway, because they have a similar experience, can discuss about that. But Sweden has a tradition of use of snus, a form of oral, smokeless, non-combustible tobacco product, which is, however, a tobacco product, and they have a tradition for years. So we have a hardcore long-term epidemiological data from snus, even on a population level. And it's a unique opportunity to see the effects of a tobacco harm reduction strategy on snus. And especially in men, there has been a gradual transition from smoking to snus use. But if you look at the latest data, and the same is happening even today, we have a lot of tobacco and nicotine use in men in Sweden. But the big difference between Sweden and all other countries is that the vast majority refers to snus use, not combustible products. The use of combustible products is very low. Even today, it's something like 5% in men. So we have a country with a high prevalence of tobacco and nicotine use, but very small proportion of that being smoking. The result in Sweden is that Sweden has by far the lowest death rates from lung cancer, from other types of cancer, and from all cardiovascular diseases compared to any other European Union country, and compared to the median. It's about basically 1/3 of the median European Union death rates, explaining why the problem is not tobacco use per se, it's not nicotine use per se, it's smoking, it's use of a combustible product. And if you look at principles of public health and how we measure public health risk and harm, we all know that harm depends on how hazardous a product or an exposure is, multiplied by how many people are exposed to this hazardous product or habit or whatever that is. So in the same way, harm reduction is dependent on the level that you reduce the harm of the product or of the habit, but it also depends on how popular this alternative habit is compared to the first one, the most harmful of the products. So if you apply this in the case of Sweden, you have nicotine replacement therapies, which in this equation, they represent an extremely low risk product. It's almost 100% safe. Okay, we cannot claim that it's absolutely safe, but it's very close to that. But at the same time, unfortunately, it's not popular at all. So you have an almost perfect product that very few people want to use, and that it's not very successful in keeping people away from smoking. So if you look this at this equation, you understand that the overall benefit for public health from NRTs is very, very low. Not because it's not a safe product, but because it's not a popular product. When you look at the same case, the same country, but you look at snus, you have a product which is quite safe, but not at the level of NRTs. NRTs are definitely safer than snus. But at the same time, you have a product which is very popular among Swedish men, and it's very successful in substituting for smoking. So overall, this causes a very strong public health benefit, despite the fact that it's not the safest alternative product you can find. And this is what we need to understand, and this is where the prospects of tobacco harm reduction lie, and why we need a tobacco harm reduction association, or in the way that Ignatius better said it, we need a smoking cessation and tobacco harm reduction association. We need to present a clear and undisputed priority to eliminate smoking, the use of any combustible products. This is of utmost importance. Then we need to clarify the misconceptions between smoking and nicotine effects. There are many misconceptions concerning that. The misconceptions exist even within the healthcare community. It's not only the population. We've done some studies in Greece, and we've seen that. We published a study in 2016. Major misconceptions and a major confusion. Many people think, and many healthcare professionals think, that the adverse effects of smoking are due to nicotine itself. We need to present the prospects of tobacco harm reduction as a strategy complementing, not substituting, all other smoking cessation methods, and also as a primary prevention tool against smoking initiation in the population. And of course, we need to promote ways to maximize health benefits and minimize harms, because as Lina mentioned at the beginning, there is a potential for abuse. There is a potential of what I call unintended use by population subgroups such as never smokers, and we need to avoid that. So we need to discuss and present and address the strong prospects that I think tobacco harm reduction has. And this is based on the fact that public health benefit is not necessarily about finding the safest option that perhaps no one will use because no one wants to use, but it is about striking the right balance between low risk of a product and high popularity of the product. And this will, I think, accelerate the decline in smoking. So that's all from me. And I will try now to...
Thank you, Konstantine. If you make me a host again.
Yes, I've just done that. And I will stop sharing too. And I hope you are the host now.
Thank you very much. Kostas Poulas, would you like to come in and compliment?
Somebody is asking something. Lina, please.
Let me.
This is Rajesh Sharan. Happy to hear and meet many of you. I have also met, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have to leave. Unfortunately, I have some urgent appointment. But I just want to say, this is Rajesh Sharan. I think I know some of my friends who are here. Konstantinos, Farsalinos, and Paulas, both are old friends. And I'm happy I heard them, I enjoyed. I will have to leave. So I just wanted to pick up a few points that Konstantinos Farsalinos left at. And in India, we have a complex situation. Many of you know that it's not easy. The concept of harm reduction is really poor to almost non-existent in many parts. And we do a lot, we like to do a lot. We just published, in fact, a paper today, something like Farsalinos just mentioned, a survey of healthcare providers in India. It was accepted today. And so I'm happy to share that we have a huge gap and there's a problem there. We need to address that. And I think the concept of harm reduction to the general population will become easier. But unfortunately, I will have to leave now. I will be very happy to join next meeting for the full length, and maybe we can have some more details. And thank you, Lena, for inviting me and all the friends and organizers. And I hope I will get some proceedings of what comes out of this pre-summit meeting. And from there, we can take it forward. Thank you very much and enjoy the meeting.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Kostas, if you have something to add, otherwise I will just give the floor to some of the people who are waiting to talk.
No, I suggest that it is better to give the opportunity to everybody to add his thoughts, to introduce himself and what he probably could expect from such a meeting. And we are here to discuss about all the issues a bit later.
Fine, thank you. I would like to ask Michalis Toubis, who is a pneumologist, a Greek but in Cyprus, and has been with us since the beginning of Scientific Summit. Would you like, Michael, to talk to us about this initiative?
Thank you very much. Congratulations for this initiative. I believe that it's going to be very useful to the society. And I have some thoughts about the initiative. First of all, we have to mention, to underline that in harm reduction, the reduction in nicotine dependence and addiction are included. We don't have to separate the addiction from the several other toxical effects of tobacco. So we have to mention this fact. Secondly, I would like to say that there are many opponents to this strategy, and we have to prove the efficacy of harm reduction. Unfortunately, we have many new products, and we don't have any general acceptance for the method with which we can check the effectiveness, the good effectiveness of these products. So one thing we have to build is, or to suggest, is a general accepted method of evaluating the efficacy and the good efficacy of these products. And we are going to be more reliable than today. But I believe that in the end, the harm reduction would be, of course, a supplement, a very helpful strategy in tobacco control. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Can I ask Professor Carl Fagerström to just step in and talk to us about his view on this association? Professor Fagerström, are you on? Well, I cannot hear him. Can I ask then Professor Kayat?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is David Kayat. I am professor of medical oncology at Pierre and Marie Curie University in Paris, and I was the former president of the French National Cancer Institute. Well, I just want to say that what you are doing is, to my point of view, critically important because up to now, the WHO and all the regulatory bodies are extremely against any alternative to just quitting smoking with the strategy of quit or die, which I think for a clinician, as I am seeing patients that are dying from lung cancer and other tobacco-related cancer, is an unacceptable policy. We have to help them. And when we know that about 80% of people to whom you give the diagnosis of lung cancer will continue to smoke until death, meaning that even being completely threatened by the idea of dying, of receiving chemo and everything does not help really to stop smoking. So based on that, we have organized in the early days of February in Paris a big meeting. There was about 300 people on harm reduction, not only tobacco, because as somebody said, is a strategy that works for everything, including nitrates in processed meat, including sunscreen for sun exposure, including whatever. So we did that meeting and we had a great success, and we plan also to continue, although I would like very much to coordinate with you. And in this period, I think that there is a paper that was published just 2 or 3 days ago by Dr. Slot, that from the WHO actually, where he compared the risk induced by normal cigarettes and by heat-not-burn cigarettes. The first time somebody from one of these organizations is really evaluating the value, the preventive value of these harm-reduced ways to get nicotine. So I think we have to work on that paper, and I think it opens a little door in the possibility to collaborate with other organizations and try to make a harm reduction strategy more popular and more widely accepted.
Thank you very much, Professor Kayat. Can I ask Dimitri Richter, who is also a cardiologist, very close to us, and he was, assigned with a project to make some research and see how we are going to make a publication in a good journal, the results of our third scientific summit. Dimitri, the floor is yours.
Hello, Lina. Good morning to everybody. I was present in the last 2 Lina's meetings, and what surprised me is that there is a lot of good science inside, which, like all the meetings, gets lost after the 2 days and after the 50 or 100 persons which are there here and discuss. So my idea was to try to make a supplement this year. A supplement with a clinical orientation, which means that you take a clinical journal. We are in discussions with angiology, which has an impact factor of something above 2, if I'm not wrong. And to pick up short papers of 4 or 5 word pages, pick up 20 from the talks that will have to be done in the September meeting, to make them short papers, to have a clinical orientation and to have a concept, and make as an extra supplement based on smoking harm reduction. I think this will be really helpful, because if you have really good speakers, and what you are saying in a congress like that, that we really have very few from the clinical point of view in Greece, and in general I don't see so many in Europe. I think it would be very interesting to be able to have that published, so it can remain, and people who want to read about that can have an easier access. So that's an idea we started with Lina. It's going on, and if everything finishes well, I think the third meeting will be able to have also a supplement in an important, in a good journal. And second, Lina, about the supplement you sent it us in the Word file, talking about the think tank. I think it's a very interesting approach to try to have a 360 approach on smoking and try to get more tools and more weapons to be able to do things, because for sure what we're doing is not enough if you see the number of cigarette-related deaths. So there is much room to improve what we're doing now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. Can I ask Professor Vardas, who is a good friend of ours, a very renowned cardiologist. He's also a member of European associations, and I would like a comment from him on our adventure.
Thank you very much, Lina. I'm listening very carefully to the discussion. And as we had the opportunity to discuss privately, I have the strong feeling that this discussion includes a number of significant issues, philosophical issues, humanistic issues, political issues, medical issues, and regulatory issues, to name but a few. Indeed, we need once to open the floor to a number of thinkers, medical persons, regulators, and to discuss openly. I would like to use this adverb, openly, realistically, because I have a strong feeling that human being is a hedonistic being first. Hedonism is in our lives at least the last 3 to 5 years, sorry. And I cannot but comment here saying human being is human being, and we have to be realistic as we approach this, especially animal. Saying that, I would like to say that all these discussions are finally coming to one main question. It's better to look for a complete cessation of smoking, or either to go to a more practical solutions to reduce the risk. This is the main point of this discussion. Of course, everybody easily could say the ideal is the complete cessation of smoking. However, the question is this possible? Look around. Cannabis nowadays is everywhere, and nobody speaks, nobody says anything. Why? I don't know. It is a new development. So, to make the story short, in very brief, I could compare this dilemma that we face now to look how to reduce harm, how to look for complete cessation, like the dilemma the Catholic priests are facing in Africa. As AIDS, HIV virus is everywhere there, the priests, Mainalis, are asking Vatican to give the opportunity to persons to use condoms. This is the practical solution. This is the human being solution, at least to my humble view. If Vatican is armored behind the dogma, like many regulatory bodies, saying zero is the best, in this case, I'm afraid we're going to lose the forest. So, to make the story short, again, here, this discussion, which is a long one, which is a very important one, which is a humanistic, to a significant degree, discussion, has to look the forest. And the forest, in my humble view, is how to reduce the risk. It is totally impossible to discuss about complete smoking cessation. So again, I'm really very, very keen to see this discussion going beyond. I like the idea of an association. Why not? If this association, of course, is transparent and objective, but no doubt we have to do our best to reduce the risk. I would like to stop here, and I am very keen for discuss anything with the participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vardas. I would like to ask you all to raise your hand, whoever would like to have the microphone and make a statement. What I wanted to say is that we did our best to invite people that show interest and are advocates of tobacco harm reduction, because we would like to build an association that really includes all that really believe in that. And one of the things I wanted to make sure is that we have a poll today amongst us, that you can vote in a panel sensor. You can see it in the chat, whether you are in favor of the development of an association and whether you would like to be part of it. And if you go to panel sensor, you can do that. I would like now to see, let me check whether there are some hands, people who would like to have a go.
Yes, I would like to say something. I don't see how I can raise my hand. Farsalinos.
I don't see neither how to raise my hand.
Well, underneath in your bar, in the chat, you can.
In the chat, yes.
You can.
Yes.
Okay, but
chat.
I see Dr. Swainer, who is here with us, if he would like to talk to us. Dr. Poloza, who has also, he's one of the people who, together with Konstantinos Farsalinos, have tried in the past to just build the Tobacco Harm Reduction Association. If you would like to have the floor and have a chat. And Professor Bamidis from Aristotle in Thessaloniki, who would like to have a go. You can unmute your microphone.
I wanted to talk to talk about what Professor Vardavas has just mentioned, because he has brought into the debate some key points referring mainly to human rights issues. One was, the nature of the human behavior, and I fully agree about hedonism and, the need of people to enjoy things. And, you enjoy your coffee. Unfortunately, some enjoy their nicotine through the worst possible option, which is tobacco cigarette smoke. But there is also the issue of human rights. The Ottawa Declaration in 1986, if I remember well, of the WHO, is about empowerment in health. And it is about giving the people and control their own health. So harm reduction in smoking too, as in any other aspect of life, is mainly a human rights issue. And whether we like it or not, it is a fact, and we need to face reality that most people, many people, there are billions, 1 billion right now in the world, do not quit smoking. It's very hard to do it. They don't have the necessary tools to do it. Some of the tools that we have are not very successful and cannot help them do it. In some countries, it's a matter of cost. It's a matter of culture. In India, if Rajesh was here, he could have discussed about cultural barriers in quitting smoking and use of other harmful tobacco products. So we are just expanding our arsenal. This is what I think harm reduction should be about. It's not about being the only strategy. It's about expanding the portfolio and the arsenal of tools to help people and to deviate them from the use of the most harmful of all nicotine products, which is smoking. The issue of nicotine that I think Professor Tubis mentioned is an important thing that should be addressed in the context of a risk proportionate approach. A risk proportionate approach says you set the priorities based on which is more harmful or less harmful to health. The addiction is about a habit that affects public health to the point that it causes harm. If it does not cause harm, and if it does not affect the daily lives, the social life, the personal life, the business life of people, it should be a low priority. If there is health harm, and when we talk about health harms, we also talk about not only about disease, but about social harms too, then this should have the appropriate priority. So I think that public health is about health in the way that it is defined by the WHO, which also involves well-being and social well-being. It's not only about disease, and this is how we should set the priority.
Thank you, Konstantin. I would like Professor Peter Harper to take the floor, and then Monica Gorgulo.
Thank you.
Professor Harper.
Thank you. I was privileged to be part of the Paris meeting that David Kayat spoke about, and I would like to reiterate that this is a public health issue, and that this is to do with political alteration of view. So Public Health England is one of the very few organizations that has really said that other tobacco products, non-tobacco products, can really help to reduce the harm of combustible tobacco. And I think we should unite more with the public health exponents. We should accept it's political, taking the last point, accept that we have to look at well-being and social well-being as well as just pure health. So I would love to see us involve the organizations within nations to come together to help us in this changing of quit or die, because quit or die is not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. Monica, would you like to take the floor?
Yes, please. Thank you for the opportunity. Are you all listening to me? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, we do.
So, I'm speaking from Brazil, São Paulo, and I'm a psychologist. So I'm very happy to have the opportunity to join this group, because I was looking at the programs and the participants of the two other meetings, the summits, and I couldn't see many psychologists involved in the debate. And I think that we have a lot of contribution to bring to this. And I would like to go especially back to some of the points Professor Vardas brought, because he talked about the philosophical, the humanist, the political, and the ethical issue of this debate of harm reduction. I've been involved officially with harm reduction since '98 here in Brazil. And from 2002 and 2008, I was part of the executive board of the International Harm Reduction Association. And for me, harm reduction makes all things. I'm a clinical psychologist and I run my private offices for more than 30 years. And when I started back to the 90s, when I started working with drug abuse, I then realized that we had to come with some other alternatives than just stop using drugs. And I completely agree that we cannot just go for this only strategy, quitting, because it's not real. We have enough experience to see and to know that this is not the way that we, as public health, should deal with the situation. And I think that Professor, I forgot his name, sorry, the last speaker, he said this is a human right issue, because I think that we have to be very alert to the fact that when we talk about harm reduction, we are talking about to give back the user the opportunity to work for his or her own decision. There's no one in the world able to tell someone else, in my point of view, to tell someone else what he or she should do. I think that harm reduction brings this opportunity to work together with the users for the best option for each one of them. And I miss users in this group of debate. I think that we should find a way to invite some of them. Here in Brazil, we have already some organized associations, and it would be very nice if we could bring some of them to join us and to bring their view of this very important debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Valdes, did you raise your hand? Would you like to add something?
Just in a very brief, again, I would like to point out, as from time to time I participate in WHO meetings, that there is a policy, I don't know if there is a strategy, for quitting, complete quitting of many things. Quit smoking. Personally, I'm not a smoker, but anyway, quit of smoke, quit of nicotine products, quit of wine and drinks, quit. And once, or at least once, I raised this issue to in these meetings, asking the seniors persons representing WHO for non-communicable diseases, what is the policy and what is the strategy of WHO to create a world without hedonism, without just what? And at the same time, I would like to raise something which is for me very, very suspicious. Nobody speaks about cannabis. Cannabis is everywhere. Cannabis is expanding freely everywhere. And WHO has nothing to discuss here, it seems. So again, I would like to make very clear my opinion. My opinion is that smoking is a real killer, no doubt. However, to be realistic and to develop methodologies to reduce the risk without to bring to push human beings to be totally deactivated from anything related to pleasure, this is totally unrealistic.
Thank you very much. I would like Stan to take the mic and talk to us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stanimir. I'm a medical doctor based in Bulgaria, in Sofia, but I'm also leading in Europe the Patient Access Partnership, which is a pan-European initiative towards better access to quality healthcare in Europe. In this regard, I'm really happy to be part of this meeting. And to one of the previous speakers, yes, I do represent lots of users. I'm personally one of those users of tobacco in the past, and currently I consider myself a person who quit traditional smoking, and for 2 years using the new heating products. But I've also been meeting a lot of rejection, especially this is ridiculous and really sad when this is coming from institutions like WHO or leading scientists who simply refuse to even understand the point of view of users, the point of view of people who at the end we all say, and hopefully this is the reality, we all are trying to address their needs and to address the needs of people who are trying to combat this this addiction, I would say. For years I've been trying unsuccessfully, and I could say that my only success happened about 2 years ago. Currently, I must say that I reduced also the number of sticks that I've been using just naturally without any efforts. But of course, this is something that needs to be proven, if it is only me or it's the entire, or it's valid for the majority of people. I'm really happy to see so many scientists here working on this question, and I personally am involved in policy on Brussels level, and I definitely would like to have much more handful evidences in my hands when talking to these politicians and institutions. And I know that with more knowledge and more science in our hands, we can be much more effective in policy making and convincing governments and all institutions about the importance of harm reduction and harm reduction programs that I strongly believe will be the future of our success.
Thank you very much, Stanimir. Professor Carnevale, would you like to take the microphone? Okay, cannot hear me. Probably somebody else. If not, I would like to probably...
Can I come in, please, Lina?
Yes.
If you allow.
Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello?
Someone, please go.
Oh, okay, sorry. I have now the line.
Please go on, I'll wait. Please.
I am Professor Carnevale. I am a biology research of University of Sapienza of Rome. And I substituted the Professor Giuseppe Biondi-Zoccai that he would like to introduce in this in the next meet the possibility for collaboration of a meta-analysis with data about the cardiovascular risk and smoke. So we would like to have, if possible, the collaboration with the research that study smoke and the risk of smoke on cardiovascular risk. So if there is this possibility, we can have the data and the collaboration of everybody for this opportunity of this study. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dr. Desai, would you like to?
Thank you. Thank you.
I pronounced correctly your name.
Thank you, Lina, very much. I'm a psychiatrist and a public health professional in academic career and public service for now nearly 40 years. I've been into tobacco cessation and tobacco control activities for over 30 years. And we have had a tobacco cessation clinic at our hospital mental health institution for nearly 20 years now. I'm so glad to be here. I almost missed the bus. I confirmed to Lina only in last 2 hours that I'll be able to join. And so thank you so much for that. I want to really talk about how impressed and interested I have become in these 2 hours. Firstly, Professor Konstantinos Farsanoulis spoke about something that I think is axiomatic. Medicine and healthcare is harm reduction. I couldn't agree more. I think that is something that we need to keep hammering again and again. I also want to talk about how Dr. Vardas, Panos Vardas, he spoke about from economic to political to a whole lot of other factors and dimensions. I don't know if I missed, forgive me, but I want to add to that a hugely important dimension of the socio-cultural dimension of harm reduction thought. Our friend Rajesh Sharan has had to leave, but Rajesh and we have had very good discussion in small groups in India about how, unlike Europe and the Americas, Afro-Asian continents have, besides political and economic issues, a whole lot of socio-cultural issues about the entire approach of harm reduction. Very briefly, besides the philosophical issues that you did mention, Dr. Vardas, there is also the socio-cultural issue of, one, seeing things in black or white. It's very difficult for these traditional or transitional societies to appreciate the shades of gray in life. The value of suffering and collecting, positive brownie points for the next life, so to say, and so many other factors that besides everything else that you go through in Europe and on the Americas, I think people in Asia and Africa, those of us who are kind of talking about harm reduction, actually have a much larger battle, as Rajesh was hinting. But at the same time, I think we are beginning to make the movement. I also agree with my clinical psychology colleague from Brazil that we need to get more mental health professionals and behavioral scientists to such forums, if I might say. Because the mental health professionals and behavioral scientists will actually add that dimension to be able to advocate for harm reduction thought or the approach. I don't need to repeat to this group, but allow me to quickly say that our difficulty in India and South Asia particularly is also that tobacco use is not only through the smoking route. A significant public health issue is the orally chewed tobacco and the oral and the oropharyngeal cancers. And so how would one, since the first and the second world, the Western world has kind of at times talked about chewing or smokeless tobacco as an alternative, the policymakers and the scientists and the general public in this part of the world actually have a much more serious problem about recognizing the non-smoking route of tobacco addiction as a problem. And so I just want to flag that one more time. We are about to set up, hopefully, we have a semi-formal group. We're about to formalize and set up a formal group of pro-tobacco harm reduction doctors, physicians. And we'll be happy, Rajesh and some of us others, will be happy to keep you all posted about that development. Lastly, what I think Dimitri Richter said is something that I think I again completely agree with. If there can be a supplement that's more clinically oriented about harm reduction approach from with papers on clinical orientation from different parts of the world, I think there'll be one more addition to the effort that we all make. For now, I'll stop there. I'm not too sure how much longer we are going to go on. I'm here. Thank you so much, Lina, one more time, and thanks everyone.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask Dr. Bernd Rode to have the microphone. Can you hear us? I cannot.
Now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Can you see me? Because I don't know what to do.
We can definitely see you too.
Okay, good. May I introduce myself because I'm completely new in this group. I'm Professor Emeritus of Chemistry here in my home country in Austria, the University of Innsbruck. And I'm actually, on the one hand, a good example, single example, for tobacco harm reduction myself when I changed 5 years ago from 40 tobacco cigarettes per day to some electronic cigarettes. And I monitored my blood values during this time, and within 3 months, I could observe a really great success of increasing health parameters. Now, it was quite interesting for me to use my knowledge as a chemist to find out what is the real useful, but also maybe still risky properties of these harm reduction means. And I found out that we could do research on this together with some other institutions here. And what we did is to examine the liquids used for nicotine administration in these electronic cigarettes for their chemical and biological potential harms. And what we found is indeed, we have published that in some chemical journals, that there is an enormously reduced risk. And the components that are existing and formed by the electronic cigarette. So this is one of our results that makes me think that one should do more joint research, people from the medical fields, people from chemistry, and biology, of course. So to join forces, to make it well known to the public. Unfortunately, WHO does not seem to be interested in results like ours. They seem not to be interested for some reasons whatsoever. And we find something similar from the big pharmacological institutions, companies. It seems that they like the quit or die strategy rather than the harm reduction. Now, I think this is just a short intervention to bring myself into the circle, the new circle that is so much interesting, dealing with topics of, I think, really high relevance, but not recognized by the media yet, not recognized by the public. There is a lot of work to be done in that field, and I think with having more and more sound results from science, from medicine, then one would understand what is really important for the public health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I would like Professor Swainer to take the microphone, and then Dr. Carl Lund coming after Professor Swainer.
Hello to everyone. Hopefully this is coming through all right. I'm with the Faculty of Law here at the University of Ottawa in Canada, and I've spent almost 40 years doing policy to reduce cigarette smoking. I think that this is actually very straightforward and incredibly important, that in public health, generally when we find risk, we seek to reduce it. And we've known for decades that though people smoke to get nicotine, it isn't the nicotine that's killing them, it's the smoke. That technology can
solve. I cannot hear you very well. There is some return in the sound.
Okay, I'll try to keep it very short and see if the added microphone here is working. Hopefully you can hear this, but I think we need to work very hard on the idea that we can reduce this risk, and we can reduce it dramatically by dealing with the delivery system. And that's a policy issue, it's a human rights issue, it's a technological solution to our leading cause of preventable death. So I think this is incredibly important work. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Lund.
Yes, thank you, Lena. Thanks very much for the invitation. I appreciate the initiative. I'm very sorry to hear that the conference is cancelled this year. I was invited there to give a presentation on snus use in Scandinavia, and as Konstantinos just said, snus is the kind of proof concept of tobacco harm reduction. So I was looking forward to show you how snus has really outperformed cigarettes at the Norwegian market. It's practically no smoking left among youth in Norway. My question is, you have asked us to answer some questions, whether we support the creation of a society and whether we would be part of that society. I think we need more precisely the aims and the tasks of such a society. What would be, for instance, the relation towards the tobacco industry? Is there an aim here to start a scientific journal, for instance? So do you have drafted some statutory principles or something? Can you please tell us a little bit more about what this society should do? Thanks.
Thank you very much. I will then proceed to continue the presentation and talk a little bit more. If you can mute that. And talk about, I will share my screen and talk about the association, the way we have really imagined it.
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I see.
Yes.
Okay, fine. First of all, there are 3 polling questions for all of you who would like to participate, because we would like to be able, end of this meeting, to show amongst us, 60 people, 55 people, what do we believe? Is there a need for an international society on tobacco harm reduction? And would you participate in an association on tobacco harm reduction? And also, just a taste of the scope of this association. We are going to just share all this information with you. I will just send you my presentation together with the slides that Professor Economidis and also Dr. Fasalinos shared with you, and also our ideas how we are going to proceed with that. What type of association? A scientific, not-for-profit society, which will be Europe-based to have access to EU funding opportunities. What we thought would be a good fit is ISBL, which is an international non-profit association according to the Belgium law. It will be based in Brussels because in this way we can have access to the EU funding opportunities, but it is not restricted by it, which means we can still have access to other funds. ASBL has an international character carried by the international nature of its purpose, which means that we wouldn't be able to have one unless the subject of this association goes beyond the Belgian territory, has a global scope. And harm reduction, tobacco harm reduction, has indeed a global scope. It is also recognized by royal decree, which strengthens its image in the minds of third parties. All those of you who are in Europe and have profit from the EU funding know that there are many buckets of money in the European Union. I'm not saying they're easy, but they are there and they can give us some possibility to just work on it. What would the activities of this association would be? Events. It started, you know, with the scientific summit, and we are going to continue having it. Research projects, research publications, policy papers, education, seminars, workshops. We really mentioned quite a few things that that association could do. Sorry. Can you see it changing? Yes? Next steps. The values of this association will be summarized in its mission statement and founding declaration. And we are here today to formulate this founding declaration, and it will be formulated by its founding members, which means now we are open. We have an open invitation to whoever is in favor of tobacco harm reduction, because we would like to make a big global network to serve the purposes. And the purposes of this association will definitely be formulated by its founding members. What we are doing here today is that we are inviting you to contribute to a working paper to be initiated today and concluded during this year's scientific summit in September via a consensus panel. So whatever we are going to do is we're using, first of all, a survey that you can will be available, if it's not now, shortly, and it will be available for the next 2-3 days to just discuss the different issues that this association will cover. What does it mean? What are the purposes? Research, publication, education. What is our stance versus smoking cessation? Is smoking cessation part of the name? Is it a purely harm reduction association? This is open to discussion. I will ask Nick Spanoudakis. Nick, do we have the survey on or not yet?
Yes, the survey is online. Just a quick fix. You shared the slide that it's panelsession.com/PRES Summit. It's pre-summit. The S is...
Sorry, bad spelling. Yes. Sorry about that. So it's not underscore, summit. I cannot do that, the correction now. And
I'm going to write it at the chat so everybody can see it. And Lina, if you want, I have the first answers.
Let me stop sharing and give me a second to just open it. I don't know, how can I sharing. Now, can you see my screen or not?
No.
Just a minute, please. Πρέπει να κάνω share this. Can you see that?
Yes.
This is
Yes.
the partner center. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Below the page. And here are the polling questions. And
if you want, we have some first answers on the polling questions.
Okay,
I can show them real time if you want.
Evaluation. Is there an evaluation form then? Yes?
Yes, that's the survey form.
Okay, so there are 11 questions. I will just go through very quickly. Scientific Summit on Tobacco Harm Reduction. Vote. Do you agree with the purpose of the International Society on Tobacco Harm Reduction to advance the knowledge and impact of tobacco harm reduction in tobacco control? So, you know my vote. I will put a yes. And then it will just give me next. I believe that tobacco harm reduction can complement the existing traditional tobacco control measures. Yes, probably no, no. So there are 11 questions. I wouldn't really like to go through all of them, and it is just a start. What I would like to say here today is that this is under formulation. So share with us what you think could be part of the subject and scope and mission of this association. If you have a better idea on where to just found this association, not, I don't know, in Europe, somewhere else, please speak loud and tell us. We are in Europe, you know, the people who have just stopped, so that's what we know best. And because there is money in the European Union that gives us, you know, freedom, we would like to be able to just have access to this money. It is not easy. But, you know, even if we do not get the funds that are probably useful and necessary from the European Union, we still have the networking, because people can network to just, you know, build research protocols and probably, you know, share results, build registries. So I believe that this community is by, you know, by talking with 55 people, you know, today, there is quite a lot of power in it, in its own right. But if we make it formal, then it will be easier for all of us. Now there will be questions. Would we accept funding from tobacco companies? Not directly, I tell you no. Even, you know, for the scientific summit, we do not accept any sponsorships from tobacco, but we allow them to register and be participants, or to publicize that we give them, you know, access to come and present their data. What does it mean? It means that the scientific community decides whether the data is good, the methodology is solid, whether it's worthy publishing or not. So one of the reasons why we have this, we started this initiative is that it is increasingly difficult to talk as a unit, as a researcher or as a university on harm reduction. And if we are united in an association, that would become easier. And one of the roles that we think would be is to advocate for harm reduction to governments or to WHO. I'm not saying this is easy. I had a long discussion with Konstantinos Farsalinos because they tried in the past to just found an association and they found it hard. But you know, years went by and things are changing. And there are more literature now available. There are more people working on projects on harm reduction. And by making this association formal, this is going to be easier. So help us to build this position statement that will be part of the mission and subject of this association. Really, I don't really have to say much more on that issue, but if somebody else would like to have the microphone, please be my guest.
Hi, Lina. This is Tony speaking from Tirana, Albania. Can I have the floor on behalf of Dr. Roland Shuperka?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Just because you had to leave on a very quick emergency, just to share our pleasure to be part of this meeting. And it's our first time in this forum and a pleasure for us. Dr. Shuperka is like the national figure of anti-tobacco in Albania, and used to be WHO national counterpart and CDC focal point. And in the last 25 years, he has been serving the public health sector as the coordinator of tobacco control policy, and has been representing Albania in all the WHO, FCDC, the COP meetings, and also a member of the Top Lab Nest. So based on the above, he just wanted to share his support for the harm reduction principle, and that he's also sharing and leading the two most famous NGOs in Albania of smoke-free initiative since 1998, and has been working hard to introduce the tobacco harm reduction agenda into the national training of the primary healthcare staff. So you have all the support of Dr. Shuperka's work and like-mindedness in Albania. Just wanted to say hello and to express his full support for your initiative. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stan, would you like to take the floor again?
Yes, very short comments on your proposal on the association. Well, I'm involved in quite many associations, especially Brussels-based, and being honest, this is not the easiest and not always the right thing to be done. So carefully, all of us should think about pros and cons, whether formal body is needed or not. On the top of that, Brussels is probably not the best place to have a scientific society. Actually, it could be based anywhere, and Brussels is just a much more expensive way to have something. Well, Brussels is giving some opportunities to influence policy, etc., and maybe some credibility on the organization registered there, but still has to be considered. I would say that for EU funding, definitely being based in Brussels doesn't help at all. Actually, what helps really is being based in many different sites and having different institutions and different expertise and countries cooperating, rather than being a big, huge organization based somewhere. This was just a comment from administrative part of it.
Thank you.
I fully agree. Let me make a comment, please. Konstantinos Farsalinos. I fully agree with Stan. The EU is very favorable in funding when low and middle income countries also collaborate with higher income countries. It is important to have access to some people in Brussels, but not necessarily to be based in Brussels. And I would agree that if we have the funds to be based in Brussels, it's better to use them in other ways, and you know, just have a lower cost in terms of being based in some other countries. Now, since you mentioned at the beginning about our efforts with Ricardo Poloz, I don't know if he's still here. We started discussing about an association in 2013, probably. The big problem was the lack of funding and our unwillingness to be funded by the tobacco industry, answering to what Carl Erik Lund mentioned. Hi, Carl. I don't know if he's still here. He raised a very important issue. In my opinion, and I have expressed it also in our private discussions, it is impossible to accept funding from any industry. It's going to be the end of the association and its credibility or its ability to interact with others and express an opinion which will be, you know, respected. As for the indirect interactions that you mentioned through, you know, being present and paying the registration fee for a conference, or even presenting scientific data, this is something that is accepted in other organizations which are completely independent from the industry, like, for example, the SRNT, the Society for Research on Nicotine and Tobacco Europe, is not accepting the participation or the presentation of science by the industry, but the global SRNT organization, they do accept abstracts from the industry, as long as, of course, they are transparently declared as work done by the industry. But they do not accept any other active participation, like, you know, doing presentations or being in the scientific committee, you know, working on the program committee and so on. So we need to be very careful, because it's going to be the first target of everyone who is against harm reduction. The first target is going to be funding. And if we accept any funding from the industry, it's going to be the end of the association. And that was the reason why we never launched such an association, because the industry was very willing to fund us, but we thought it would make no sense, and it would immediately mean the end of the purpose of building this association if you accept funding from the industry.
Okay, I will just come in and clarify. First of all, the reason why we chose Brussels, but you know, we are open to discuss it, is because there you have the ability to have a virtual office. A virtual office means you have an address, you have an office that is run virtually by us in Athens. And by using people that are experts in using, you know, the funds of the EU, we can have the opportunity to use some of the European money. I will just name only one. You know, most of you who are in Europe know COST. You know, COST is really a fund that helps scientists to do networking. So it doesn't give you a lot of money, and it doesn't give you money for research, but it gives you money to travel around and meet colleagues and work together. Now, this is a small example. Now, so this is one of the things, for example, that we had in mind. Secondly, we believe that science should be presented and reviewed by peers wherever it comes from. So we do not accept funds from a tobacco industry, but if tobacco industry has a research work to present, we want them to come and present. And we want you all to be there and criticize. If their methodology is lousy, if their data are lousy, then criticize them. But we cannot really do not allow them, as some others do, not present their data. Because that's what scientific ethics in science is. Allow everybody to present their methodology and data. I'm not saying about, you know, I don't know. I'm not talking about, you know, arms industry. I don't know, I would do differently. But, you know, we have 1 billion smokers, and there is growing evidence that harm reduction is, you know, is a good strategy. Let's build data to see, is this true or not? That's what the opportunity would like to build, you know, through this scientific association and network. Somebody asked me, excuse me, Ignatius would like to have the floor, and then somebody else also raised a hand. Peter Harper and Ignatius. Okay, Ignatius first, and then Peter will have the floor.
Well, thank you, Lina. I agree with your statement and Costa's last statement. And this is the reason that initially I thought that research on smoking has to do also with the effects of smoking on the general population, the benefit that we may have from smoking cessation, and of course the benefit we may have from tobacco harm reduction. So this is the reason that I thought that among the tasks of a possible society or a think tank should not separate smoking cessation and the effects of tobacco smoking, smoking cessation and tobacco harm reduction should not be separated, but should be faced as a whole. And of course, this may facilitate to get funding from COAST. I participate in the COAST action concerning remote conditioning. I have worked and see how it works. And of course, it is a good suggestion from your side to use COAST. But we have to get into preventive medicine. And preventive medicine has to do also with smoking, smoking cessation, and tobacco harm reduction. So we should expand, let's say, the task of our society to all these fields. And this may also facilitate funding either from Europe or, for example, from drug companies that provide varenicline or provide bupropion, or may in the future provide other medically assisted ways for smoking cessation. That's my position on what's been stated until now. Thank you.
Peter, would you like to talk?
Yes, thank you. I was a member of ISLAC, the International Association for the Study of Lung Cancer, from meeting 2. There aren't many of us still in practice from that first meeting. And I do think we should use EORTC, ASCO, ISLAC as well. Firstly, I do think you need a society. So let me say that clearly and offer all help to help establish it. I think it should be exactly as this is, with representatives of every single walk of life. But many of us now do see this as a human rights issue. You cannot leave 1 billion smokers to find their own way through this. I'm a medical oncologist, so I am looking at stage 3 and 4 disease the whole of my life. Stage 2 I love to see, stage 1 even better. And when I started, of course, small cell lung cancer was the only disease the oncologist could treat. And of course, he couldn't really treat it, as we all know. So those of us who've lived through the tobacco tsunami of disease, and I'm just talking about lung cancer, we do, and let alone bladder cancer and kidney cancer, I'm just talking about cancer, we do need to take action. What you've started, if I can say so, Lina, is remarkable, and it needs to go forward. Now, whether we get initial funding from some well-wishers or something like that, which oncologists may be able to access for you, just to start in a small way, I do think you need to start. So all strength and get going.
Thank you very much, Peter. Anybody else who would like to make a comment? No? Okay, this is good.
Hey, I would like to talk something. You can hear me?
Please, yes, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for to introduce myself. I'm Jose Manuel Mier, a thoracic surgeon from Mexico City. And I'm currently the director of the Minimal Invasive Thoracic Surgery Center in the Hospital Angeles and the coordinator of the lung cancer clinic in the same hospital. I'm very happy to be here and appreciate a lot the invitation because I would like put my little acknowledgement in this group. I understand that everybody in this group, we are in the same line, and I appreciate a lot can participate in this group. It's my first time, and I only want to say thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you.
Anybody else who would like to make a comment or no? Okay. In that case, we said about, I don't know, Nikos, do we have the polling questions? Did people vote or not?
Yes, people voted. And if you want, I can share my screen so
Please
I can show you.
I have to make you a host. Just a minute. So, Nikos, you are now the host of the meeting.
Yes, perfect. Wait a minute. I'm going to share my screen. Here you see it.
This is very interesting.
This is, tell me.
Tell us how many people have voted. 20 votes.
20 votes, yes. If you want, I can go to the next polling question.
Let us see first and comment on this slide.
Okay.
I think Professor Tubis wants to speak, but he has to unmute himself.
Okay.
I don't know how to vote. I didn't vote because I didn't know how.
Okay. So in the chat, you have to go, well, anyway, I mean, I will just leave all the voting on for 24 hours. Okay, so I will share with you afterwards, you know, all the links so that you can access panel sensor.
Okay.
Monica would also like to talk. Okay, access panel sensor and also complete the survey. Monica, would you like to talk?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. I haven't voted yet because I sent you a message asking if I could invite some colleagues that work in the same field here in Brazil to respond the survey with me. So then we would be able to bring much more contribution than if I did just myself. Would that be possible, or you really want me to vote now?
No, do not worry. We are going to just leave it on for the next 24 hours. And if some people would like to access later, we will consider that. We just do not want to leave it open for you know, more than 2 days. But otherwise, yes, we are going to do that because we know that technology is not easy for all of us. One issue is that data sharing. 70% of the 20 people believe that data sharing is very, very important. And also advocate for tobacco harm reduction, influence policy makers, raise awareness. So these are very good news. Nikos, would you like to give us the next slide, please?
Yes, of course. This is the next one. Would you participate in?
This is good also. 90% would like to participate in this association, good news. But 21 votes. Okay, next one, please.
Yes.
Is there a need for an international association on tobacco harm reduction? 100% yes, which is also good news. I know that you are all advocates of harm reduction, but still, you know, there are some skeptical in how this will impact. And I think it is good news. Do we have another one?
No, that's the 3 polling questions.
Okay. And then the
I'm
survey.
gonna make you host.
Okay.
Oh, you want to make you host or so?
Please make me a host. Thank you.
Okay. I think now you are.
And you have to stop sharing your screen.
Okay, yes.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to add something on? I mean, what I have shared with you in this survey is just the start for the formulation of the position statement. So please help us by contributing. Send by mail what you think would be good to be included in the mission of the association. What I'm going to do, I'm going to integrate all the comments and circulate it to you all. So by the end of this summer, I think we will have a position statement to put through a consensus panel during the scientific summit in September. Efrain, would you like to talk?
Yeah. I'm Efrain Cambronero from Costa Rica, a surgical oncologist. And I just have a question. You know, you all made very clear that this society, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay. You all made very clear that this society won't get funding from the tobacco industry. But, you know, you also made very clear that if we, you know, as society accept funding from the tobacco industry, you know, the society won't have any credibility in this scientific world. But my question is, you know, or I guess my suggestion is that every member of the society should also sign or, you know, they make a declaration of conflicts of interests in order to really make the society more, you know, credible. Because I don't, you know, if we received even indirect funding from the tobacco industry, like, you know, travel expenses, coverage and stuff like that, that also will take away credibility for the society. So I think part of the issue that needs to be included in the society is to have a conflict of interest declaration for each member of the society.
Dr. Swainer, would you like to share with the other participants before you go your suggestion? I think he probably left. He mentioned, sorry, I will share it with you about Clive Bates, that he probably has a form to share information, but I will just, I'm not sure exactly about his comments, so I will share it when I integrate all the information and send it back to you. Monica, would you like to say something?
Yeah, Lina, I would like to take with Efrain just said, because in the first years I was involved with the International Harm Reduction Association, we had the same debate there about accepting or not the sponsor of the industries, alcohol or tobacco or pharmaceutical industries. And then in a certain moment, we decided to accept some sponsor from the alcohol industry, and then etc. And for me, this is a big, complicated issue, because after decades working in this field and dealing with all the problems that these drugs, alcohol, tobacco, medications, illegal drugs, and then etc., bring to the society, I'm not sure if I agree that the industry would be out, should be out. Because for me, okay, this is not a very clear position for me. I just want to make it very simple here. Because I think that since they are part of the problem, and we know how difficult it is to get sponsors to do what we think that we should and could do, I think that we could probably find a way to bring them to the field in a way that we could work with their sponsorship as well. I know that this is very, very complicated, and I know that I'm exposing myself by saying this, but I really would like to bring some debate about this issue as well. I've already worked with the alcohol industry, and in the end, we had very good success, and I couldn't see any, okay, we had a lot of problems, lots of people talking against us, and then et cetera, but in the end, the practical results were really good to the population, and especially the young people who have binge drinking or something like that. So this is something that I really would like to put on the table and see what we can do with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. One of the things that we have put, on the scope of this association is to be able to advise governments. And at this moment, if as far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, because this may change, if we accept funding from tobacco industry, we may lose this privilege. So we have really to exhaust all other possible resources of funding in order to keep this very strong tool to be able to be advocates of harm reduction and advise governments. If we find a way to do so, as you mentioned, of course, it will be a blessing. But what I want you all is to just give us some feedback on this. Give us some feedback on what you want us to do. But I just, as we say it in my language, I hold a small basket because I believe it will not be very easy. And we would not like, none of you would like to be accused of, you know, funneling, you know, money into research to support industry.
Can I say something else?
Please do.
Yeah, just two more things. From 2010, I decided not to be connected to any institution, to any university, to anything like that, because I wanted to be free to think and to be able to express what I think, what I believe in, and etc. So I understand very well the position. I don't have any connection. I don't have any compromise with any other institution. So then for me, it's much easier to say that. So I know that. And the second point is that I'm not saying just because of a lacking of financial support, but because I really believe that industry are a very important actor in the whole picture, and they should be brought to the debate with us as well.
Thank you. Before I give the floor to Stan and then Peter Harper, I would like to say what I'm going to do next. First of all, we are going to make, you know, to make some good notes of our discussion today. I'm going to send you all my presentation with all the points that raised. I will try to make a note of the chat, to make, you know, a copy of what was said in the chat. But also, you know, we have recorded this conversation in order to help us, you know, do good proceedings. And I will share it with you all. Then, all those of you who would like to add on the discussion, please return, you know, those notes with your personal notes, whatever they are. Agree, don't disagree, whatever you would like. And it is our job to make, you know, a common text to share with you all. So that's our job, to make it happen. I know it is challenging. We will do more research because I take a note, like Stan said, it will be expensive in Brussels to do it elsewhere. Come forward and tell us what would be easier for us to do. So we are open. We expect your input. So I will give the floor to Stan. Take a note. I will send you my presentation and the presentation of Konstantinos and Ignatios. I will just share with you the results of the polling and the survey and send us notes, okay? Just to make a note. Stan, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I will actually start with this, that we are in a very unusual situation when tobacco companies, being the enemy up to now, suddenly become companies that are actually producing something that could save many people from their own products. So this unusual situation requires also unusual tactics in working and communicating that to the world. The fact that a product is produced by someone who has been really killing millions of people just a few months ago shouldn't prevent us to really explore what the potential of this new product might be, and shouldn't prevent us from saying to the people that actually they have a choice now. So in terms of involving industry, I would agree very much. And we've seen this model working quite well in European context. The European Access Partnership, which is probably the biggest European organization in healthcare right now, involves under one umbrella not only patients, doctors, and scientific societies, European Parliament and member states, but also the entire industry. Like we have there the industry associations of pharma and all the other industries related to healthcare in a way. And this is accepted quite well because everyone is around the table. We know that we cannot agree every time about everything. It's not an easy process, but at least it's very transparent and open process. And nobody's questioning us why the industry sits on the table. We all know that sooner or later we cannot explore, we cannot research a subject that somebody else is producing without talking with the producer. So in any case, we need to establish the form that is publicly accepted. I wouldn't go to the traditional way as we all are used to do EU science and for us public policy up to now, but probably explore other opportunities, either involving them in a wider circle of experts to be with us around the table. And for the funding, we have to think of creative ways for the funding to be guaranteed that this funding is in no way influencing your statements, your findings, your publications, and articles, etc. But to think of these innovative ways, I would also go in non-traditional way of establishing association, even informally and virtually. For the moment, obviously, this is the only way, and this is something we have to acknowledge that in the next months and maybe more, this would be more and more the case, and traveling even for documents in Brussels is a nightmare. I mean, it's it's an administratively nightmare, and I wouldn't go through the traditional way. For the time being, we can informally continue somehow, but with the proper steps that we have joint statements and probably think of formalizing this at a certain point would be a better choice and idea currently. Otherwise, it's needed, and there's no doubt about that.
Thank you very much, Stan. Points well taken and noted. Peter, would you like to add on this?
I will. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Stan. Again, just to reiterate, so I've been on the main board of ISLAC. I've been on the main board of ASCO. David Kayat's been on the main board of ASCO. I led the international subcommittee. So we've got a bit of a feel for it. So use us, because I think the only ways you have of raising money are either affiliating through another organization, having somebody adopt you as a human rights issue, or in some way accessing industry money in some way. So it's quite clear that alcohol groups have got over the problem of the distilling industry. Certainly organizations which are dealing with obesity have got over sponsorship with the food industry. We just need to think our way through it, to be independent, but to somehow have some funding. You don't need vast amounts of funding. I think the Zoom issues have made a big difference. I would steer clear for the moment of WHO, who I don't think have covered themselves in glory with the reason I'm now speaking to you from home, which is lockdown, where because my wife got the disease one way and another, we've been locked down, getting on for 9.5, 10 weeks. And it's pretty brutal. So we all need to, I think it has also, of course, opened up Zoom and all these other fantastic ways of us communicating. So thank you, but whatever help you need, I would be happy to impartially introduce you to some of the organizations I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. We appreciate that. Actually, I will come back to most of you directly, you know, to just ask and discuss, you know, on a one-to-one basis on some of the issues that you have raised or have not raised so far, so that I am sure that your views and comments are very well taken care and integrated. And I think Maher Zanavet would like to have the floor. Yes, here you are. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Lina. I was muted by you and not myself, so it's okay. Thank you very much. My name. It's okay.
When I hear noise, you know, I intervene.
Yeah, but it wasn't me. It's okay. Thank you very much, Lina. Really, it's my honor to be with you, all of you. And I did listen to everybody. I didn't want to talk before, but I think I have to go back to what Monica and Stan said, you know, about the society. And I think we have to have a transparent society, open to all, even to industries. And our aim is science only. So this is what I do believe in. This is my little comment. Thank you very much. By the way, I'm a senior consultant urologist, and I'm interested in this area because of what cases I do see in my clinic, you know, in my practice. A lot of bladder cancer, a lot of fertility problem, a lot of erectile dysfunction, you know, and most of them, they are smokers. So I hope we will do the job together. Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you, Stan. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Any other comment? Okay. Well, actually, you know, there's been quite a long meeting, and I had in mind to just talk about the program of the scientific summit, but I think it's quite redundant for the moment. I will come back to you and ask you to contribute in that as well.
Lina,
yes?
May I have the 1 minute to add something before the end?
Absolutely.
I would like to thank all the participants, and I would like also to reply or to comment in 1 or 2 issues raised by some of the speakers. The first is that the meeting in September is not cancelled, as I heard before. It is changing, we are changing the way that we will perform it. So the meeting will happen, but via internet. The second is that what Professor Richter said about the special issue, all this, is a very good idea. We have tried to have a similar special issue in previous meetings. However, the successful special issue, the success of such an issue is based on the contribution of the speakers. So last years, we understood that the presenters and the poster announcers were not giving us short or long papers in order to prepare a part of a special issue. If this year we are able to gather the presentations in a text way from the participants, it will be perfect. We could have a supplement in a medical journal, and we can also have a special issue in a more basic science issue. So keeping all this in mind, I would like to assure all the participants that we will try to do the best for a successful meeting this year. And we hope that the e-meeting will not be something difficult to overcome it, but will be a chance for a more successful event. Thank you.
Thank you, Kostas. So I would like to recapitulate, really. First of all, about the summit, it's going to be online, but it will not be a Zoom meeting. So I have you to know all that we will use state-of-the-art tools to make it successful. And as much as possible, we will have pre-recorded the lectures, or and we will have live the panel discussions and the questions and answers. So it will be state of the art. So we will not have the sound issues or, you know, the changes in slides that we have today, just because I'm not a technician and I'm trying to just coordinate to moderate a meeting. So this is number one. A virtual meeting makes it easy for us because our resources are scarce to just connect in the summit people from Tokyo to San Francisco, because you cannot fly them to Athens. I want to believe that next year, in September probably, we will have a physical meeting. I'm talking about 2021 in Athens, and I will urge you all to participate. But I hope by then we'll have an association, some sort of funding, not a lot, and we'll make it easier. But we need to just make it happen. So I will share with you the draft position statement of the association that I have you know, communicated so far, together with all the rest. And I would urge you to just join, see, you know, this scientific summit and see it as an opportunity to have your, I don't know if you're university people, your research students, or, you know, your associates to present. Do not forget what we are trying to do is a 360 approach. 360 means we would like to have all sorts of data, basic research, epidemiology, molecular biology, ethics, clinical data. And Dimitris Kouredas and Kostas Poulas talked about a basic science that could be presented in, you know, toxicology journals. And Dimitris Richter talked about a medical journal, because we would like our clinical data, your clinical data, you know, the we is because I feel part of the group, to be published and communicated. So there are quite a lot of things in front of us. I will receive your comments on what sort of association we want to build and where it would be based. I urge you to come back to us and demand from us to give you all the information that you need. And let's build, you know, from now on, a network of communication with you all. Any comment? Because I think we have already we also put in the chat the nosmokesummit.org, which is, you know, the webpage of the scientific summit. So far, we haven't put that it's going to be, is it virtual? We have really announced it that it will be virtual, but, you know, there will be more information I could tweet in the next few days. If any other comments are on, we are already in this meeting 3 hours almost, some of us more than that. I would like really to thank you all for this participation. It is beyond our expectations because you stayed for so long. I'm really thrilled about that. And I'm grateful that you all joined us. And let's assume that this is a very good start for a very nice and robust association. Okay, unmute yourselves and say hello and goodbye.
Thank you very much, Lina.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
See you again.